Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our November meeting. We got a good group on tonight. I'm glad you all joined us. This is our, third meeting of the new 4-H year. So tonight we're going to talk about poultry judging, which is something that is a fun activity for those of you who are interested in all things poultry. And it's also a nice contest you can participate in. And we'll talk a little bit more about that tonight. But we always start off our meetings with the 4-H pledge and the Pledge of Allegiance. So would anybody like to volunteer to lead us in those tonight when we get to that part of Isabella's got her hand up. So you want to do which one, Isabella? The Pledge of Allegiance? Anybody want?
Jasmine replied in the chat.
Oh, okay. Well, Jasmine, I'll get you to do the 4-H pledge, and I'll get Isabella to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Let me get to that part. So welcome, everybody. Let me share well, we can go ahead and do the pledges if you'd like. Let's see if I have all right. Oh, we got a good group on tonight. Let me bring up my slides. All right, so go ahead. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance first. I think Isabella was going to do that. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself, Isabella, and we'll do that. Let's see, do you need help unmuting? You have to hit unmute, Isabella.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. And Isabella, where are you from in Florida? Like, what part of the state do you live in?
I live in St. Cloud.
St. Cloud, okay. And I think Jasmine wanted to help too. So Jasmine, you can unmute and lead us in the 4-H pledge.
I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world.
All right. Whereabouts are you in Florida, Jasmine?
Lee County.
What? Say that again?
Lee County.
Lee County. Okay. Oh, so everything, hopefully your place is all right down there. Getting there. Yeah, that's a big, and here we got another storm on the way. So hopefully everybody will be safe. I don't even know if this one has a name. I guess it has some kind of name. Who knows what does it have a name yet or no? I don't know.
Its name's Nicole.
Nicole. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That one kind of sprung up on me. I didn't even know it was anything about it until yesterday. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
I want to, we've got some new members and we have some guests on tonight. So in case you don't know me, I'm Dr. Krista Kubelis with University of Florida. I work in the state 4-H office and I'm a state specialized agent for dairy and animal science. And also on tonight, we have Miss Prudence Caskey, who is a 4-H agent up in Santa Rosa County. And she grew up on a poultry farm, shows poultry, and just an all around good human being. And we're very proud that she's with us. And we do have another special guest on tonight. I'm gonna put her on the spot a little bit. We've got a state 4-H officer. Now, you're all are in a 4-H club here, and we just happen to meet on Zoom. But there's 4-H clubs all over the state of Florida, and there's about 200,000 kids that are involved with 4-H in Florida in some capacity. But most clubs that meet in person have club officers, and then there's county officers and district officers, and then there's state officers. And we've got a state officer with us. Laura Brown from Gilchrist County, who I've known for a long time. She's an upstanding young lady, and also breeds and shows poultry quite extensively too. So I just want to say hello to Laura. Laura, do you want to say anything from the state office or from the state officer team to our, we've got about 150 kids in this club, and I don't know, about 40 or so typically in person, and the rest watch the recording later on. So Laura's a part of the club too, I think, but she's typically busy with her officer duties and other things. So if you want to say hi, you can, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. But
Hey guys, like he said, I'm Laura. I'm serving as a secretary this year. So really cool with 4-H. I'm actually going to the Egg and Poultry Convention next week to compete in the National Avian Quiz Bowl, which is a competition all about birds. So stick with it, do poultry judging, do quiz bowl. It's amazing. You'll enjoy it, and you'll really enjoy it if you like birds.
yeah, so if you do good in poultry judging, you might get, if you're a senior, you might qualify to go to Louisville to the national contest. We're recording, correct, Miss Prudence? I want to make sure, because we might use this recording for a lot of
Yes, sir. We are recording and I will post it to the website. I just put the link to the website in the chat.
Okay, fantastic. I just want to make sure with it, we record them all, and she's real good. Miss Prudence is real good about it. We've got, in case you don't know, all the former meetings from this year and a few from last year recorded, and then she's got a whole lot of other resources too. So I might send you some stuff for poultry judging to put up there too, if you'd like. All right, so judging poultry, and I always joke around when I'll help with dairy cattle too, and dairy goats and different things. But we just had a dairy cattle judging deal at the North Florida Fair in Tallahassee this past weekend, and I always joke with the kids, how do you tell if a cow is guilty or not guilty? And same thing with chickens. How do you tell if that's not really what you're judging? You know, when people go to before the judge, that's not what we're talking about. We're evaluating quality, and we're identifying things. And so that's basically what we're doing in poultry judging. So here's what you do in 4-H poultry judging. This is what the old manual looked like. The new manual is now online, which I'm going to share a link with you all to have the new manual. But in poultry judging, it is a contest that all of you, if you're 8 years old and above, can do. And if you're a clover bud, we'll let you practice, but you won't get scored. We don't have a whole lot of clover buds that want to do it, but I wouldn't turn one away. But if your age is 8 through 18, you can do the 4-H poultry judging contest, which is going to be at the State Fair in Tampa in February. In fact, February 17th. I've got that date on a slide later on. And here's what you do in a 4-H poultry judging contest. Now, the FFA poultry judging contest is at the same time. Some of the kids there are wearing blue jackets. Some of the kids there are wearing green jackets or white shirts. So I don't care what color jacket you have. I just want you to participate. So here's what you do in 4-H poultry judging. You identify parts like drumstick and wing. Some of the stuff you already know by going to chicken restaurants. You know, I'm sure what a wing is, or a flat, or a drumette, maybe even. And a boneless thigh and a boneless spread. We'll talk about that. So identifying parts, retail parts. Then you learn how to evaluate ready to cook carcasses. Like if you went to the grocery store and bought a whole chicken that's wrapped up in plastic, it'll say on there somewhere USDA grade A chicken. Well, what does it mean to be a grade A chicken? What's a grade B chicken? What's a grade C chicken? So you learn that, how to grade chickens. And then same thing with eggs. You see eggs are sometimes grade A and double A. You learn how to grade broken out eggs. In other words, eggs cracked on a plate, how to grade eggs inside using something called a candler. And then also how to grade the exterior or the shell of the egg. And then how to judge past production hens. And this is the thing that I think is maybe the most interesting. And it may be the most applicable to most of you all who have home flocks. I know a lot of you have home layer flocks. So from years and years of scientific research, we know by looking at a hen, and in this case, you're going to be judging the kind of the premier laying hen in the egg industry, the white leghorn hen. But we know by looking at a hen how to evaluate her and to tell about how many, pretty precisely how many eggs she's laid. So you'll have a group of 4 chickens and you evaluate each chicken and you rank them in order from the bird that's laid the most eggs to the hen that's laid the least eggs. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. And you can practice on your birds at home. And then you do oral reasons on that for one class. In other words, you tell an adult why you place them that way. And sometimes there's a written test. We don't do a written test in Florida. I think in the national contest, there might be a thing. So, all right. So we just got some chatting in the chat, which is fine. That's what it's for. All right. So let's talk about parts. We used to have 17 that you had to remember, and they a little over a year ago, they broke some of them. They made a few more. And so here's the parts that you would need to learn for the poultry judging contest. And obviously, you're not going to learn them all tonight, but we're just going to review them. So here they are. I'm going to go through them. You've got the whole breast, breast with ribs, breast quarter without wing, boneless breast, boneless split breast, tenderloin, leg quarter, whole leg, thigh with back, thigh, boneless thigh, drumstick, boneless drumstick, whole wing, wing drumette, wing flat, back, neck, paws, which are basically the feet, gizzard, liver, and heart. And those are the 24 parts now that you need to know. Now, we went through that very, very quickly. So if you were going to a contest, you would want to certainly learn these. And on the online judging manual, it's got a picture of all of these. And I'm not going to go into all of them. We're just going to try a few, to see how you do. Because I bet you know a lot of these without even studying, just from living in the United States and eating chicken. So
Dr. Chris.
Yeah.
I am so sorry to interrupt, but when
No,
we
go
were
ahead.
there last year judging as adults, several of the FFA kids had said paws. And I was like, chickens don't have paws, but they're taught
Yeah,
to say paws.
That's what they're taught. Yeah, that's what they're taught to call and I guess in some people eat these things, just the feet. So that's
Okay.
that's what the term is.
They
That is
also
so
use them as
funny.
dog treats.
Yeah.
So one of the ladies in our office always puts some in the fridge around Halloween because she thinks it's hilarious. But yeah, we always have chicken feet in our fridge in October.
That's pretty.
At the office. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let's try this, okay? So who would like to unmute and tell me what number 1 is? Just from what you know.
Chicken leg.
What would be a more, here's your word bank.
It's a drumstick.
Drumstick, correct. How about number 2? Who would like to try and tell me what number 2 is?
Wing.
Wings, that's right. You guys are good. You haven't even ever done poultry judging and you already can identify 2 parts. How about this thing right here? What is this?
The breast quarter.
A breast quarter. So if I had a whole chicken and I cut it in half and then I cut it in 4 quarters, I would have 2 breast quarters, which would be a split breast and a wing with a back. And then I would have 2 leg quarters, which would be a thigh, a drumstick, and half the back. So that's correct. And then we're left with what? What is this thing? Gizzards. If you live in rural Florida and drive around long enough, you will pass a gas station that has a sign up saying fried gizzards. People, I'm not a big fan. Some people absolutely love, some people that's their favorite part of the chicken. Has anybody seen a gas station with a sign that says fried?
Yeah.
Fried
No.
gizzards?
I know they have
Nope.
them somewhere.
Nope.
Yes.
Oh.
Nope.
Kind of funny. I mean, they must be
My
good. I
dad
mean, I've
eats
tried them. They're kind of
bombs.
tough, I think, but some people
They're not bad.
some people like them. My dad liked them. My dad ate everything on a chicken except the meat, I think. He ate the back and the gizzard and heart and everything else. He didn't
You
like
gotta
chicken
cook it right
breast
for it
though.
not to be tough.
Yeah. Somebody had their hand up. Who had their, let's see. I think if you had a question, go ahead and ask your question. Whoever had their hand up. It went away, so I can't tell who it was. Or were you just saying that you've seen gizzards? Maybe they took their hand down. Okay. All right. So here, yeah, you guys are right. So that's, see how easy that is? There's 4 of them out of 24. So you've already got part of them down. And I bet if you, and in the contest, what they'll have is just 10 plates, like paper plates, and then a part on each plate. And you just have to, fill out a form with the parts. And so you can do that. So any questions on parts? To me, this is probably the easiest part of the contest. The hardest part of the contest, in my opinion, maybe not for you, is evaluating ready to cook carcasses. Oh, Katie got them all. She got them all right at the state contest. So for ready to cook, and typically you do 10. Sometimes at the contest they do 5, but you do 10 carcasses, and they'll be hanging on a little rack deal, and you can't touch the parts, you can't touch the carcasses, but you can touch the little rack that they're hanging on and move them around to just to look to see if there's any broken bone. So what you're looking for on the birds, this is how you evaluate a chicken carcass for quality according to USDA standards. You look for missing parts. Like if you go to a grocery store, you don't want to buy a chicken and the wings missing. I mean, you just paid full price for a whole chicken. You want the wing, you want both drumsticks. You don't want a big chunk of breast missing. So you want, USDA has these standards in place. So when you buy a grade A bird, in theory, you're getting grade A quality, which means all the parts are going to be there that you're paying for. Does that make sense? That makes sense to everybody. Yeah. And you're looking for cuts and tears in the skin. In other words, you don't want the skin, like if you're going to bake a nice whole chicken, for Sunday dinner or something, you don't want half the skin missing from the thigh or half the skin missing from the breast. So you want you're looking for cuts and tears, and there's minimum standards that have to be met. Only a certain amount of tears are acceptable for each grade. And then broken and disjointed bones. You don't want to try to eat a drumstick and it flops over because the bone's broken. That's not, there's different standards for that too. So the birds are graded A, B, C, or now no grade. That's a new thing. They used to just be A, B, or C. Now there's a new category called no grade. And so here's where you look for exposed flesh, which is like tears in the skin. The grade, the way that you look at it is on the breast, on the leg, which includes the thigh and the drumstick, both sides, and then the wing, and then also the back. And so see, this bird here would be discounted. This could not be a grade A. Would you think this would be a grade A bird, this bird down here in the corner? Can you see that one? Like if you went to your local grocery store and bought a chicken, it's wrapped up in a little plastic thing, so you can't hardly see it very well. And you took it home and it looked like that, you might not be very happy if you were going to serve it to guests at a nice dinner or something. Maybe if you were cutting it up to fry, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But here's the stand. So of course the USDA does these standards, and so of course they make it look very scary, but it's not as scary as you think. And so we'll go through this. Wow. One thing you've got to be aware of in the contest, and typically most of the birds that we're going to evaluate are going to be what's known as fryers, which are between this 2 and 6 pound, greater than 2 pounds up to 6 pounds. Now, when you go to the national contest, you might also do what they call roasters. In fact, you will do a class of larger. You'll do probably 2 classes of these birds, maybe 1 class of these birds. This is in Louisville, if you get to go that far. and then a class of these, which are turkeys. So you'll be doing a class of turkeys as well. But at our contest in Florida, you typically do one class of fryers, the 2 to 6 pound birds. And so for A quality, what we would call a grade A, USDA grade A quality bird, can have up to 1/4 of an inch of exposed flesh on the breast and legs, and up to 1.5 inches of exposed flesh. In other words, the skin's torn or skin's missing everywhere else. So basically the back, wings. So that's the exposed flesh. If it's greater than 1.5 inches, then it gets knocked down to B. So it can be up to 1/3 of the whole part for B quality can be exposed. If it's more than 1/3 of the parts, if it's more than 1/3 of the whole part, then it's a grade C. If the meat's missing greater than 1/8 of an inch deep, and bigger than the diameter of a coin, like a quarter, then it's no grade. Like if a chunk's missing from the thigh, big chunk, or a big chunk's missing from the breast, then that's considered no grade. Does that make sense to everybody? And this is just a run through. You don't have to memorize all this tonight. This looks scary. So that's exposed flesh. Then you look for disjointed and broken bones. And a grade A bird can only have one disjointed bone and no broken bones. And then from there we go to 2 disjointed, or 1 disjointed, 1 broken, non-protruding. In other words, the broken bone can't be sticking through the skin, and that's still a B quality, and then so on and so forth. And then missing parts, this is the easiest part to remember. A grade A bird can have the wing tips missing, and it can have the tail at the base of the back missing. And then once you get past that, then you're entering B quality and C quality, and then you finally no grade. So I'm not going to dwell on this a lot because it's something that you would learn. If you want to do the contest, you would want to certainly learn all this. But I'm just giving you the very basics tonight. And I'm going to give you a link where you can go read all this later on. And of course, we're recording this too. So I'm going to pause on this slide just a little bit so that we get back to the recording. You can pause it here and read this if you want to. But also you'll have a link to the actual, National 4-H has a nice handbook for this. It's free online that you can see. And here's a bigger thing of it. I'm gonna check chat while, yeah, you can print out. It's easy to go to the website and just print it. They have it to where you can print out a PDF of it. So
Are we supposed to have the handbooks?
I'm going to give you a link. I'm not assuming any of you, I see a few in chat say that they have the handbook. My guess is that most of you have never done this before and don't have the handbook. So I'm pulling a lot of this information from the handbook. And when we're done, I'm going to give you a link to the handbook that you can go look at. Okay. And you can print one off, or you can bookmark the page if you want to. I see Marissa's got her hand up. Go ahead, Marissa.
What if we did this before, but we don't have the handbook?
I'm going to give you a link to the handbook, so you will have your own copy. It's free online. You
Okay,
used to have
thank
to
you.
buy the book from National 4-H, but now it's free online. So you can just, like I say, either bookmark it and read it online, or if you want to print it out, you can. So the last slide I have has the handbook. But I didn't want to give it to you now because I don't want you all looking at the handbook. I want you all paying attention to this. And then afterwards, because all this is from the handbook anyway, most of it is. And so this certainly is. So you can go look at it later on at your leisure. All right. So here's a couple of carcasses, and I'm going to try to make them big. So just based, I know you all have never done this before.
Oh my God.
But just based on what you just learned, what do you think this bird would be? Would it be A, B, C, or no grade?
A.
A.
Okay. And how about this one? It's got a little bit of exposed flesh.
B.
It's got a disjointed bone there, disjoint. Okay,
B.
B. How about this one?
C. C.
No grade.
What if you went to your local grocery store and say grandma's coming over Sunday afternoon and you're going to cook dinner for your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, everybody. And you go to the store and I don't know what you pay per pound, but you buy this bird and you get her home or get him or whatever it is home. And this is what it looks like. Would you be happy?
No.
If-
No.
That's why we have USDA standards to protect the consumer in this country. And that's one of the things you're learning, even if you never go get a job in the poultry industry, which some of you might, but even if you don't, at least you'll be an informed consumer the rest of your life. You'll understand what a grade A bird is and what it should be. And you all are correct. This is a grade A bird, grade B, because it's got several disjointed bones. And then, and this is the little racks I'm talking about that they hang on. And then this bird has it's got over 1.5 inches of exposed flesh on the
And no wing.
breast. But the thing that knocks it to a C is the fact that the entire wing is missing. All right, so that's a very quick overview of judging carcasses. And in the contest, sometimes we do 5 carcasses, but a lot of times we do 10. If we can get that many. Sometimes it's hard to find that many in a grocery store, so we only do 5 because we have to go buy this stuff, at whatever stores nearby to put the contest on, because you want fresh stuff. You don't want a bunch of smelly chickens to judge. Any questions on this?
No.
Okay. What county fair do you have that does poultry judging? Just curious, Katie.
The Duval County Fair.
Well, I knew they had one last Saturday because I went over there and helped them
They
set
also
up
have
for it.
one at the Northeast Florida Fair.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. All right, let's move on to broken out eggs. And so broken out eggs are eggs that are on cracked open on a plate, like you would get ready to fry them. And so you judge them based on freshness. And the way we can determine freshness is, does anybody know? Does anybody want to guess?
You
How
can
we can
float
tell?
them, right?
Well, that's true, but we're not, they're broken out on a plate. So how would we tell? When a lot of
The
you have
height of
chickens,
the
right?
egg.
What's
How
that?
high it sits off
The
the
height.
That's right. How the thickness of the thick albumin, the thickness of the thick and thin albumin and the shape of the yolk. For those of you who have your own chickens, I have chickens too. If I got my eggs an hour ago for the day. If I took one of those eggs that I just harvested from the chicken and put it in a frying pan, would it kind of stay together or would it spread out and fill up the whole frying pan? When you get your eggs fresh from your chickens, how do they typically, when you fry them, what do they typically do?
Stay
Spread
together.
out.
How many think they spread out? I'll take up the whole frying pan. How many think they kind of stay together? I'm talking about fresh eggs. We got kind of a mixed opinions here. The fresher eggs will actually stay together, which means their albumin, which is a fancy way of saying egg white, the thick egg white and the thin egg white, they will be very thick. And the egg will kind of stay together. And as eggs kind of age, like they sit on the counter, they sit in the fridge for a long time, some of those, chemical bonds in that egg are going to start to weaken and gravity is going to work on the egg and it's going to spread out. And an old egg, like if you crack a grade B egg, they'll fill up the whole frying pan. They have a very, very thin albumin. So that's kind of so that's the main way you judge it. And then also if they have a blood spot or a meat spot larger than an unsharpened pencil point, then they're graded loss. So in other words, if you go to the grocery store and buy eggs, now I have my own chickens, and have you all ever taken eggs from your chickens and there's been like a little dot of blood in the yolk or a little dot of something that looks like meat in either the yolk or the egg white?
Yes.
Yeah. I typically just pull that out, but most consumers would not find that very nice. In fact, if they didn't know anything about chickens, they might be repulsed by it. And so there's nothing wrong. I mean, you can eat, certainly that won't hurt you to eat it, but most American consumers, when they pay for a dozen of eggs, they don't want to see blood spots and meat spots. So that's the thing that would cause it to be a loss. And so we look at the double A eggs have thick and thin albumin. And so a grade double A egg are the freshest eggs. They have a very thick albumin, and then the thin albumin's out here and a more rounded yolk. But what you're really judging is the thickness of this thick albumin. A grade A egg is kind of in between. You can still tell the difference between the thick and thin albumin. And then a grade B egg spreads way out, kind of has a flat yolk, and you can't hardly tell the difference between the thick and the thin albumin. So here's what I'm talking about. Some eggs here. So here's the top view, and these eggs will be on plates at the contest. So you can look at them from above and you can look at them from the side, but you can't touch them. So this is the thick albumin. This is the thin albumin. This is the yolk. Same thing here. Here's the thick albumin, thin albumin, and yolk. So looking at what you know about judging broken out eggs, evaluating the thickness of the thick albumin, the shape of the yolk, and whether or not there's a blood spot or a meat spot. So we know they're either double A, B, or lost / inedible. How would you judge egg number 1?
B.
B.
Okay. And how about egg number 2?
A.
A.
What about egg number 3?
Double A.
Double A. And how about egg number 4?
Lost.
Inedible.
Inedible or lost? It's going to say one or the other on the scorecard.
Lost.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So, yeah, you see how good you all are? You all are already ready almost for this contest. It wouldn't take a lot of practice to get you all doing pretty good in this contest. So that's broken out eggs. We also judge exterior eggs. And here we're looking for the cleanliness and shape of the egg, and also the structural integrity of the shell. So we're looking for things called calcium deposits, big old chunks of calcium that if they break off would hurt the egg. Things called body checks, which sometimes I'll see on eggs that I get, like little cracks in the egg that have feet kind of sealed up inside the hen. Either one of those would cause it to be a B. The other thing that would cause it to be a B is if the egg is funny shaped. We want eggs to be egg shaped. It should have a big end and a little end. It shouldn't be like round like a golf ball. It shouldn't be so oblong that it won't fit in a carton. So it should look like an egg. If it looks like an egg and it's clean, it's probably going to be an A. If it looks like it won't fit in an egg carton, or if it looks like it's got something going on with it, then it's a B. If it's got dirt on it, which could be anything that's not eggshell, it could be a feather, could cause it to be dirty. If it's got a lot of staining over a certain amount, which we'll look at here. Why don't we go ahead and look at this? So double A or A eggs, this is another USDA chart. They have to be clean. A B egg can have very slight stain, not dirt, but like it was dirty and then they washed it off and it's stained, up to 1/32 of the shell, which I always kind of go by a pencil. If it's bigger than the eraser of your pencil, it's dirty. If it's smaller, I'm talking about a stain, not actual dirt, then it's probably going to be a B. And if it's bigger than that, prominent stains are dirty. If it's got adhering foreign matter, like a feather or like another egg broke and some of the egg white is on the outside of the egg, then that's dirty. Or if it's got manure on it, anything, that's dirty. Egg shape, if it's egg shaped, it's an A. If it's not, if it's weird looking, it's a B. And then the shell texture. Now, grade A eggs can have a little bit of roughness, but not big old calcium deposits. If they have a huge calcium deposit, then that would knock them down to a B. If they're a loss egg, is cracked or, or broken. Excuse me. So a lost egg is cracked. Something went down my throat. Sorry about that. Sometimes grade B eggs will have big ridges too. Grade B eggs are kind of fun because they're funny looking. Again, you could probably eat it just fine. Those eggs are going to go to things like cake mixes. And when you see ingredients like powdered eggs or anything like that, they're trying to utilize these things. They're just not going to be purchased in a grocery store in an egg carton because people don't want a bunch of funny looking or weird looking eggs. And these, remember, body checks are those little spider web looking things that have, what causes body checks is an egg sometimes will crack inside the hen, and then she seals it up with more calcium, and it makes these, the egg's not broken, but it looks like there's little spider webs in the egg. So that would make it a B. So this also is on your manual that I'm going to give you a link to. Yeah, sometimes
Chris,
you see
you got some hands up.
Okay, go ahead. If you have your hand up, go ahead and ask some questions.
So like I've had some eggs, they have like a wart on them. What would that be?
Like a big chunk of, it's probably what we call a calcium deposit. It's like a wart that looks like part of the shell, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's called a calcium deposit. It's just like a big blob of eggshell that for some reason, formed on one part of the egg. And so the reason that knocks it down to a B is sometimes that can get caught on something and kind of would cause the egg to break. So there would be the chance that that egg would break a little easier. So it gets knocked down to a B. Nothing wrong with the egg to eat. Perfectly fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who else had a hand up if they wanted to ask a question?
Once my hen laid this really, really tiny egg and I still have it.
Is she a young hen?
Yeah, she was a pretty young hen.
Yeah, typically. And here's an avian bowl question, Laura. Laura is going later this week, I think, to Louisville to compete in avian bowl, which is another contest. That's kind of like a game show where you answer questions. So this is for Laura Brown for your practice for avian bowl this coming weekend. What is the main factor in egg size in a hen? In other words, what makes hens lay bigger eggs? What's the number one factor?
Calcium?
No, it's age of the bird, age of the hen. As hens mature, they lay larger eggs. And so that's what her example, that's why I asked if her hen was young. Typically young hens, when they first start laying, will lay very small eggs. And sometimes when they first start laying, they'll lay one or two real small eggs. Of course, bantams lay small eggs, but although some bantams lay eggs, you wouldn't be, I don't know how they lay them sometimes.
It's the size of my thumb.
Yeah. I see some more hands up. So who else has hands or has questions?
My hen laid like a tiny egg like that too, but she was like past, like she was already a hen. She wasn't just starting to be a hen.
The other time they lay those eggs like that is when they're getting ready to go into their molt and they're kind of winding down their laying cycle. So did she quit laying for a while right after that or soon after that?
Yeah, and then she started again.
Yeah. So typically a young hen, when they start laying, will lay a very small egg, maybe 2 or 3, and then they'll get bigger. Then their second lay cycle, they'll be bigger eggs yet again. But when they get ready to molt, which we'll learn when we're talking about past production hens, they're going to stop their lay cycle. They've already laid their 250 eggs for the year, and they're getting ready to molt, take a little break. Sometimes they'll lay 1 or 2 of those small eggs at the end of their laying cycle too. Got a lot of hands up. Let's go with Vincent. And is that Spencer? Yeah, Vincent and Spencer. Go ahead and ask your question. Or whoever can unmute first. Go ahead and answer. I see Kimberly's got, or Samantha's got a
Yes,
hand up.
I got a question.
Okay.
I have a hen that she's about 3 years old now, and she lays a really, really big egg. It's that perfect egg shape, no calcium deposits, and but it's wide enough that it will not fit in an egg carton, no matter which
Yeah.
top or bottom you put it in. What would that be graded as?
That would still be a grade A, but just because, is she a larger breed?
She's an Americana.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're pretty good sized birds. So yeah,
She lays
we're
a
going to
big.
use in this contest. Yeah. For purposes of this contest, if the shape's correct, we're not going to really evaluate them on being too big. That would be a jumbo. We have different size eggs, of course. There's mediums, larges, extra larges, and jumbos, and certainly she would be a jumbo. I've got some. In fact, I've got one leghorn hen here that her eggs barely fit in a carton, and she's an older hen. So yeah. But yeah, you wouldn't really worry about that in a contest. That's a good question. Who else? Samantha has a hand up. Go ahead, Samantha.
My chickens haven't even started laying eggs yet, and not even my guineas either.
But I haven't. Well, typically around 6 months old, they'll start laying, most breeds.
I don't
So
even.
they'll
Know,
just
I
be
don't.
patient.
I don't know actually how old they even are.
Did you get them this year?
I think so. Pretty sure.
Maybe. Yeah, they'll start laying. You'll go out to feed them one day, and they'll be in the egg laying there.
They
I don't know if you
eat
have
out of a. There's little fat ones eat like pretty much every bit of food that's left on the ground. So like none of the other chickens get the food. They're just way too fat.
You might need to put another feeder in there. So we talked about pecking order last time, and you got to have room for every bird in the coop to get her meal. So you got to have big enough, long. Remember we talked about that last time. The size of the feeder you need for however many birds you have. So it might be good to put another.
We had 50, and I think. Oh, my mom thought. I think we had like 50. We lost a few, so I think we only have like now about like 25 left. For sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So who can remember from last time the minimum size of feeder per bird? Well, how much trough space does each bird need? Who can remember from our last meeting last month? Let's see if y'all were paying attention. It's a certain number of inches. Actually, it's also a quiz bowl question, Laura. You might know it too. I'll tell you all. It's 4 inches on one side, and there's 2 sides to a trough. So, but each bird needs 4 inches of her own space if you've got a long trough for her to eat out of. All right. Anybody else have a question before we move on?
We have another question.
And that's the minimum.
If you have
Okay, go ahead.
If you have some of a grade A and some of a B, what would be that overall?
Well, each egg in the contest is going to get its own grade. So there's going to be, I think, 20 eggs they usually do. Sometimes they do 10. But you will do, egg number 1 might be an A. Egg number 2 might be an A. Egg number 3 might be dirty. Egg number 4 might be a B. So every egg there is going to get its own grade. And at the chicken farm,
Do they grade by like the outside and the inside together? Or say like the inside was like an AA, and then the outside was misshapen or something? How does that work?
so in the contest, those are different stations. Each one of these things I'm going through is its own little station within the contest.
Okay.
You'll rotate around. Like you may start with carcasses and you'll grade 10 carcasses and turn that sheet in. Or if it's a Scantron, you bubble that part of the Scantron in. Then you move to the next table, which might be these exterior eggs. And you'll grade either 10 or 20 eggs.
I understand now.
And then you move on to the next station, which might be broken out eggs. There'll be different eggs. It won't be the same eggs that you're grading. Does that make sense? Yeah, so you do each one of these stations separately.
Yes, sir. It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions before we move on to the next? Next thing. All right. And here's just a bigger picture of that. And then here's some exterior. Let's practice on these eggs. So what do you think egg 1 is?
A.
Okay. How about egg
I'd say a
2?
B. B.
B.
Think egg 2 is a B?
Dirty. Dirty.
How about egg 3?
B.
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 E. One
B.
egg, 2 dirty, 3 B.
B. Yeah, B. Egg 3 is B.
And I want to zoom in on this egg, this dirty egg. This is prominent staining greater than 1/32 of the size of the egg. See this stain? It's not really dirty as far
It's
as
yellow.
having dirt, but it's stained. But it's a big stain. If it was a little tiny stain, it would be B. But since it's a big stain, it's dirty. And then this is a body check. That's what I want to zoom in on this. This egg got cracked inside the hen before it was laid. Have y'all ever seen an egg like this? And she's got, I don't know, some kind of way inside of her.
No.
Well, you'll see it sometimes. It kind of looks like a spider.
Yeah, that happens with my chickens. It's really.
That was on the state contest last year.
Yeah. And so these come through the line. And it's also, this egg's a little bit, it's getting borderline being misshapen. It's almost too long to fit into the carton. But the reason it's a B, I know it's a B because of this body check. That's a grade B egg because of body check. All right. You see, you all are doing so good on this. I hope you all will decide to do the contest. And then candling eggs. And we don't make candles out of eggs, although that is a cool picture. But there's this thing called a candler. And we also use it to look at eggs to see if they're fertile or how a chick's developing. But these are unfertile. These are, table eggs for human consumption. So they're, likely not fertile. But they're graded AA, A, B, and loss. And we want, just like the broken out eggs, we want the freshest eggs. And the freshest eggs are going to have the smallest air cells. And the air cell is on the big end of the egg or the little end of the egg. Where's the air cell in an egg? Who knows? Which end of the egg should you hold up to the candler?
The big end.
Big end. And the big end has the air cell. And the air cell, in case you don't know, if we're doing, when we talk about embryology and hatching out chicks in a future meeting, we'll learn that that's where the air kind of enters this egg and where the little chick would get its oxygen from. But for our purposes, for grading table eggs with a candler, we want a small air cell. And so that's the big end of the egg. And I used to use a quarter when I was coaching poultry judging in Gilchrist County. I would have the kids use kind of a quarter as their guide. If it was smaller than a quarter, and it basically is supposed to be the depth of the air cell. If it's 1/8 of an inch or less in depth, it's a AA. It's a real fresh egg. If it's actually, no, I'm sorry, a dime, I would use a dime. If it was smaller than a dime, it would be a AA. If it's kind of between the size of a dime and a quarter, then it's a grade A. And if it's bigger than a quarter, it's a grade B. And then if you can tell in the candler that there's something fishy going on inside that egg, like a blood spot or a meat spot, then it's loss. It can be, if it's tiny enough that you can see that's less than 1/8 of an inch, it could still be a B. But typically, if I can see them, it's loss. So anyway, here's some eggs. And when I'm talking about the air cell, can you see this right here? This is the air cell, the little thing on the end of the big end of the egg. Here's the air cell on this egg. Here's the air cell on this egg. So in the candling room, you go into a dark room, and typically there's 10 or 20 eggs, and you grade each egg, either AA, A, B, or loss. And so here's the air cell on this egg. So knowing what you now know about candling eggs, what do you think? And I'm going to make these bigger. So here, right here, is the air cell. Here's the air cell here. The air cell here is kind of right there. And then the air cell here. Now we got some other stuff that you can look at. So what do you think this egg is? This egg right here. How would you grade this egg?
A?
A.
Hmm.
I'd say probably grade B.
I'd say
B.
Okay. How about this egg?
A.
A.
Done.
A.
A.
A. A. A.
How about this one down here? Let's look at this one.
B.
Inedible.
B.
Double A.
How about this
Double
egg?
A.
Inedible.
Lost. Inedible. Lost.
Edible.
Lost.
We're getting a lot of
Lost.
variation in these answers. So let's look. So this egg would be grade B because it's got a very big air cell. It's much bigger than a quarter. And it's very deep. So that would be a B. See how this one has a very tiny air cell? That's a double A. Then this one down here,
I forgot that that we said B up there.
yeah. This one's got kind of in between these. See, this one's real big, this one's real little, this one's kind of in the middle. So it's a grade A. And then this one's got some blood spots going on. So does this look like something you want to eat?
No.
Yeah, so we call that loss or inedible. All right, let me check chat now. Oh, y'all are just visiting. That's fine. So this is the part that I really like. Past production hens. Oh, we got some hands up, so we do have some questions. So who has their, let's see if I can tell. Okay, Jerry has his hand up. So go ahead, and then Samantha has her hand up. So go ahead and ask your question, Jerry and Jerry Jackson.
Yeah. So I have a bantam that like stopped laying, but she's only had one clutch. So like when's the next clutch?
So that's a good question to ask because we're getting ready to talk about past production hens. So, and let me talk about it in context of these Leghorn hens, and it'll apply to your Banny as well. That she just won't lay as many eggs as Leghorn. So these chickens, when they're hatched, these little pullets, and let's say either your bantam or a white Leghorn, they're going to mature, and once they get to maturity, they're going to at some point start laying their first egg. And for our Leghorn here, she's going to lay how many eggs per year, Laura Brown? Do you remember about how many? I mean, they all don't lay the same amount.
360?
No. We would love that.
250?
Let's say around 250.
Oh.
She's going to lay an egg about every 21 hours. So about an egg a day. Sometimes you might get two because it's 21 hours. So about every 21 or 22 hours, she's going to lay an egg for about 250 days. And then she's going to go through something called a molt. She's going to start losing feathers, and her laying is going to slow down and then eventually stop. And she's going to take a little rest. She's by this point, she's going to be thin. She's going to be bleached out. We're talking about bleaching in a little bit, but she'll start recovery. She'll start adding some color back to her feet and legs and her beak and her skin. She'll put on a little bit of weight. She'll grow some feathers, and she's going to get ready to start laying her second clutch of eggs. Now, if your bantam, my guess is she's going to lay a lot less eggs than 250. She might lay 150, or she might lay, depending on what breed, she might lay 20 eggs. And then she might want to set. Our white Leghorn's not going to want to set. She's not going to go broody. So that's been bred out of her. But your bantam might want to go broody and sit on eggs. She's going to have an instinct she wants to sit on eggs because that's how the world works, right? Wild birds and breeds that still brood, they go broody and they sit on eggs for 21 days. And then they hatch out a clutch of eggs. And then they go through their molt and refurbishing, and they raise their clutch of chicks. And then they go through the lay cycle again. So your bantam's probably now some bantams lay quite a few eggs. So I don't know what breed of bantam you have, but she's gonna go through this deal where she slows down laying. When she's done laying her clutch of eggs, she's gonna lose some feathers and look awful. She's gonna look bad because she's gonna be molting. Does your hen look bad now? You seeing feathers laying around the coop? It's like, where are all these feathers coming from? No, maybe not. Maybe she has somebody shaking their head. He knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. And so she's going to eat a lot of food, regain some body condition, and regain some color in her beak and her legs and stuff. And then she's going to get ready to go through it all again. That's what birds do. That's normal. And man, we got a lot of chats, but I think people are just talking. Is there anything in chat, Miss Prudence, I need to see, or people just well, I hope nobody's being rude in chat.
No, I think we're doing good in the chat. They're just visiting.
Okay, y'all can visit as long as you're nice to one. That's our only rule in this club, is be nice to each other. All right, so but we like questions, so please always feel free to ask questions. Let's see, did I answer your question about your banding? And that was a great time to ask because we're getting ready to talk about this. That was good. You're good.
We do have Marissa in the chat had asked about her Peking duck hasn't started laying, but you said it would be 6 months and they're still not laying.
Oh, well, that's for like a laying hen 6 months. A duck will be a little older than that when they start laying. So your duck might be 8 months or 10 months, or maybe even, depending on the genetics. Your duck will be quite a bit older than 6 months before and ducks are a lot more seasonal than chickens. In other words, if you think about when do most wild birds lay their eggs?
In the spring.
Think about a holiday. Yeah. We have Easter eggs, right? In the springtime, birds lay a lot of eggs, including chickens. And so your turkeys and your ducks and your quail, they're going to lay much smaller clutches of eggs, and they're going to be much more seasonal. And most of them are going to want to lay in the spring. My guess is this spring your Peking duck's going to start laying, because they're a lot more kind of in tune with the natural seasonal things. And she may lay a clutch in the fall too. I've got some ruined ducks, and I just noticed I had an egg out there today, and I need to see if they're going to lay any more. I'm waiting on my I've got one pair of bourbon red turkeys, and I'm waiting for her to lay some eggs. So I'm going to see what she does, but they're not going to be like your chickens where you're going to get eggs for 200 days in a row. You might get 20 duck eggs, and then she's going to. Pekings are she may or may not be broody. Probably not as a Peking.
I can tell you that's even worse than a large fowl duck or bantam ducks. I'm lucky if I get 5 eggs a year.
Yeah, you're not going to get very many duck. Yeah. So, exactly. And she's typically going to be laying around springtime, right, Laura?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Laura
About
shows,
March is when she starts.
she shows, I don't know how many breeds of poultry the Laura shows, but she shows at some pretty big shows.
Right now we have 9.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, you don't want your chickens eating your eggs. That's a sign maybe of some calcium deficiency. You might want to get some oyster shell, and you may want to try to do some things to discourage them from.
To get them to stop it, put a fake egg in there, and then they'll peck the fake egg, and nothing happens, and then they'll stop pecking the real eggs.
We put a ping pong ball in there to trick them.
You put a golf ball.
Yeah, they peck that hard egg and it hurts their beak. They say, well, maybe I should stop doing this.
Problem is that I started having hens be broody and want to sit on golf balls.
You
Mine would sit on the ping pong balls.
Well, if they hatch, maybe you'll have some tennis players. Samantha, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. I have actually too. My mom wanted to know what's the best feed to feed them for 6 months?
For your laying hens?
Yes.
So you want to get a nice commercially mixed layer pellet or layer mash or layer crumble. And it doesn't matter. I mean, there's half dozen or a dozen different name brands, Purina and Mana Pro, doesn't matter what, but make sure it's a layer feed. It's got a lot of calcium and a lot of protein, at least 16% protein. And we're going to talk about nutrition. We talked a little bit about it in a previous meeting. We're going to talk more about it at an upcoming meeting. But you want to now you can give them 3-grain scratch as a treat, whole corn or cracked corn as a treat, other things as a treat. But their main nutrition, their main calories know, their main diet needs to come from a commercially mixed, unless you really want to get good at being like a nutritionist and mixing your own feed, which I would not recommend at this stage for you all. It's much easier for you to buy at your local feed store a pre-mixed layer feed, and there's plenty to choose from. And then the preference of crumble versus mash versus, and you don't see a lot of mash anymore, but crumbles versus pellets is a personal preference. I used to feed crumbles for years and years, and I switched to pellets. I just found they waste less with pellets, but my birds do. I mean, maybe your birds don't. So that's what I would recommend.
Samantha, you had your hand up, but I think it's been up for a while. I didn't know if you had another question.
Yeah, my other question is, how can you tell an adult? How can you tell when it will like when it's an adult chicken?
How can you
It's
tell?
not a chicken anymore.
Oh, how can you tell when it's a mature chicken?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're getting ready to go over that with past production, aren't you, Dr. Chris?
Yeah. Well, we're going to touch on that. So what breed in particular do you have a particular breed, or are you just thinking of chickens in general?
We have guineas and Cornish hens.
Well, the Cornish hens, it's going to be they're going to grow quite fast. And the guineas are going to be a little slower. The guineas will be mature between 8 months and a year. The Cornish hen before 6 months, is she a Cornish rock cross or a true Cornish hen?
Jumbo.
If she's a Cornish rock, like a broiler that you're raising for meat?
It's a jumbo Cornish hen from Cackle Hatchery.
Okay. Probably around 5 months, 6 months, she'll be mature. Yeah.
They're huge.
Well,
They
Cornish,
normally don't get to laying before they're ready to be processed.
yeah, the Cornish rock crosses that you raise. See, the Cornish chicken is half of a hybrid. This is off topic, but the broilers we were looking at, I'm going to go up a few slides. These things are probably at this weight, they're a hybrid between what you've got and another breed of bird called a white Plymouth Rock. A white Plymouth Rock and a Cornish crossed makes what we call a broiler, a commercial broiler, a Cornish Rock cross broiler. And these birds are ready to process between 4 and 6 weeks of age. They will weigh 5 pounds.
Oh my God.
They grow. It's amazing how fast they grow.
Oh, you said weeks, not months.
And so your bird is going to look like a turkey when she's 6 months old. So you need to make sure with her challenge is calcium. You've got to get some calcium into that bird so that because they'll outgrow their bones and they won't want to walk around. They'll be like very brittle. So you've got to make sure her bones are strong enough for her to carry all that weight at a young age. So you've got to have good calcium supplement and plenty of protein because she will grow like a weed.
And if you have a Cornish cross rooster in your pen, be careful with how big he is on top of your other hens.
Yeah, they can.
We actually have it's a jumbo Cornish hen is what they called it, and the rooster. So I guess it's a jumbo Cornish rooster, and it sits in it perches with 2 guineas at night and guards the coop basically.
He'll be big enough to.
They're huge.
Yeah. They'll look like a little turkey.
Yeah. My hens, some of their like wings, like their backs, you can see like their skin because of the roosters.
Yeah, the roosters can be a little rough on them. So you can buy little saddles for hens if you want. I mean, if you really want to, you can do some things to trim the rooster spurs. I mean, that doesn't necessarily go over well for your show birds, but
you can actually twist the spurs off of a rooster.
Yeah, you can. There's some things you can do to.
Or when you get really big into show birds, artificial insemination.
Yeah. All right, so let's go into past production hens. So you will have, and this typically we do, last year we only did one class because we could only find 4 white leghorns at the state fair. But typically what we'd like to have is 2 classes of 4 white leghorn hens, and they're judged separately, 2 different groups. You do it twice. So in one class, you'll have 4 white leghorn hens, which are the birds that are used on the commercial laying farms that lay the white eggs that you see in the grocery store. And so science can tell me, I can look at certain things on that hen to know 100% of the time which hen laid the most eggs. And she's going to be the top of my class. I'm going to put her first in my order of 4 birds. And so the first thing I'm going to look at is bleaching or pigment loss. You can call it bleaching or you can call it pigment loss. And I'm not talking about the color of her feathers. I'm talking about the color of her beak and her feet and legs, her skin. That's what I'm talking about. Because her feathers are white already. They're not getting, in fact, they might not be so white because she's been in a cage or she's been on a farm or whatever. I don't care. Her feathers aren't what I'm talking about. Most of the chickens that we will have for laying will be yellow pigmented birds. And so you probably have chickens at home with yellow feet and legs, yellow beaks. If you look at their skin, it almost has like a little yellowish tint. Even those broilers we looked at just a few minutes ago, their skin almost had a little yellow tint to it. That's normal. Now, some birds don't have that, but all the birds in the contest that we will be looking at for laying will be yellow pigmented birds. And that pigment is called xanthophyll. If you really want to get technical and scientific, that xanthophyll pigment is in the beak, in the skin, in the feet and legs, and also in the yolk. Because what color is an egg yolk? Yellow. So that's xanthophyll, XANTHOPHILL. I don't know if it's 1 L or 2 L's. I don't know. I don't know how to spell it, but I know it starts with an X, xanthophyll pigmentation. And so the amount of bleaching pretty much tells me how many eggs that chicken has laid, because she bleaches out in a particular order. And we're going to learn the order in a little bit. So I can evaluate all those spots on the hen. And if she's bleached through certain spots, that tells me how many eggs she's laid. That's the main thing I look at. And then there's some things that I can look at to tell me her current state of production. So the bleaching tells me how many eggs she's laid. These other things tell me the persistency. Is she the intensity and persistency? So these other things tell me her current rate of lay. That's abdominal capacity, or how big her abdomen is, how much abdominal fat condition she has, and the molt. And we've already talked about molt. That's feather loss. But for our purposes, it's feather loss in a very particular place. So we're going to look at bleaching. We're going to look at abdominal capacity. We're going to look at abdominal fat condition and molt. So the first thing is bleaching. And chickens bleach in a very particular order. And they've done years of research on this, and they found this to be true. So here's the order of bleaching in laying hens. Vent. And you got to know the parts of a hen. So the vent is the business end where the egg comes out of. Other stuff comes out of it too. So you have to be careful when evaluating the vent. But the vent is the first thing that bleaches out. Then the eye ring, which is a ring of skin around the eye. Then the earlobe. Some people don't even know chickens have earlobes. They do. Then the beak, which you all know where the beak is. The bottom of the feet. The entire shank, which here's the shanks. Hock, which would be, you look up under her feathers here and look at her hocks, and tops of toes. The last thing that will bleach out is the tops of her toes. You might have a bird that's white here, white here, white here. There's still just a little bit of yellow on the tops of her toes. And sometimes that's how you can break a class, is looking at those tops of toes. And so that's the order of bleaching in white leghorn hens. And a lot of the time you can place a class by bleaching, but for your reasons and all, you need to know this other stuff too. So abdominal capacity, we put our fingers, I mean, we have to hold the birds to do this, but we see how big her tummy is basically. Between her keel bone is right here, and then there's 2 pubic bones on either side of the vent. And the amount of fingers, because our fingers are going to be the same size for each bird that we evaluate. And my fingers are different than your fingers, but your fingers aren't going to change in the contest, and neither am I. So the amount of your fingers that you can put between her keel bone and her pubic bones, and then in between her 2 pubic bones, gives us abdominal capacity. She might be 4 by 3, 4 fingers by 3 fingers, or 3 fingers by 2 fingers. The larger the abdominal capacity, the better her current rate of lay. And also she can lay bigger eggs too. And so abdominal spread and abdominal capacity, you use your fingers. And so you might put on your notes for the bird 1, 2 by 3, for bird 2, 4 by 3, for bird 3, 3 by 1. And that's the distance of how many fingers you can put. That's a note to yourself of how many fingers you can put between where her keel bone ends down here and her pubic bones, and then in between the 2 pubic bones. So that's abdominal capacity. Abdominal fat condition. So let's talk about abdominal fat condition. This is a laying hen, a commercial laying hen. Her job is to lay eggs. Let's think about a beef cow and a dairy cow. You might think, well, why are we talking about this? We're talking about poultry judging. This is how I teach this. This is how I taught it to when I was 4-H agent. That's how I'm going to teach you. When a beef cow or beef steer takes a mouthful of feed, he swallows it, goes through his digestive process. Anyway, when they take a mouthful of feed, that gets invested into meat, lean muscle, and fat. And that's good. We want that. When a Holstein cow or a Jersey cow, any kind of dairy cow, takes a mouthful of the same feed, do we want her to invest that into muscle and fat or into milk? Milk. So our dairy cattle, even though they might eat more feed and might be taller than the steer, do they look like they're as big and muscular and fat as a beef steer? Have you seen a dairy cow? They look bony. And that's a good thing because but then you look and they've got this very capacious or very large, that's a good vocabulary word, udder that holds a lot of milk. Because when she takes a mouthful of food, yes, she's going to take enough of that energy to live and walk and do what she needs to do. But we want her to invest that instead of making an abundance of muscle and an abundance of fat. We want her to carry herself a little bit leaner, but also to make good milk. Now the beef, let's say a beef cow, let's say a Angus cow or a Hereford cow, they're going to make milk too, but they're still investing a lot of that to their body, their muscle and their fat, and making a much less amount of milk than our Holstein, who's going to put a lot more of that energy towards making milk. And so now let's talk about our chickens. We've got these Cornish rock crosses we were just talking about. They take a mouthful of feed. They invest it into super amount of growth, which means a super amount of muscle and quite a bit of fat. How about our Leghorn hen? She's going to be more like a Holstein cow. She's going to be a little more frail, a little more thin. So when we pick her up and evaluate her, if she's real fat, well, she's investing her feed into her own fat, not into laying eggs. So that tells me she's not as good of a layer. And she's not as an intense layer at that moment in time. Maybe she's already laid out and maybe she's going through that process of rebuilding up her body stores. So a really intense layer should not be fat. Okay. Now you don't want them emaciated and unthrifty and unhealthy. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about if they have an overabundance, if they're very, very fat, that's not good. And the way we evaluate that is to kind of gently, very gently now, because these are living things and we don't want to hurt them, but we want to kind of massage very gently those same bones we were just talking about to see how much fat and also how hard their abdomen is. If their abdomen is very hard, that's a sign that they're fat. So we want a nice, soft, pliable abdomen. And we don't want a lot of fat over the bone. So that's abdominal. Does everybody understand that? I'm trying to explain it where you all understand, but I know you may not have ever heard this before. We don't want unthrifty chickens by any means, but we don't want them overly fat, particularly our laying hens. All right, now our other ones, the broilers, eat away, grow away. But these laying hens, we want them to invest that feed into laying eggs, not in making themselves fat. And then the final thing is molt. We talked about when a bird gets to the end of her clutch of eggs and she's either going to sit on them or she's going to just stop laying. She's going to go through a molt process. She's going to lose some feathers. She's going to get new feathers that are eventually going to take their place. And then she's going to rebuild, go through everything and start all over again. The way we evaluate molt in a poultry judging contest is by counting the primary feathers from the wing tip to the axial feather, which the axial feather, I wish I should have put a picture of that, is the first major joint in the wing. There should be 10 primary wing feathers between the wing tip and the little tiny feather in the middle of the joint, which is called the axial feather. If there's 9 feathers, then she's lost one. Every chicken should have 10 primary feathers from the tip of her wing to the axial feather. I don't care if she's in Timbuktu or if she's in Alaska or if she's in Florida, she should have 10 feathers between her wingtip and her axial feather. If she only has 8, she's in a 2-feather molt. If she only has 9, she's in a 1-feather molt. And you need to know that for your reasons. When we get to oral reasons, you need to know that. Or if she's not molting at all, that she's got all 10. So, because growing new feathers takes a lot of protein, and so does that. I should have shrunk that down more. So that's molt. So when you evaluate these chickens for, you got hen 1, hen 2, hen 3, and hen 4, you can draw yourself something like this on a piece of paper and take notes on her. And you want to look at her, you want to look at her pigment loss, or P, her capacity, or C, or you put BC, her fatness, and her molt. And you might make notes down here too, and then you place your class. So here's an example. Let's pretend I looked. I want you all to get in the habit of taking notes on these classes of birds that you're evaluating. So you might take notes on, let's say hen 1 was bleached through the bottom of the feet, and she had the most intense yellow in her shanks of all the 3 birds. And she had a 2x2 body capacity. She had a fat, harbed abdomen, which tells me she's not laying. And she had 1 feather in each wing of molt. And she had a small pink comb. That's my note to myself to help me remember that bird. Because you got to have to not look at your seniors won't be looking at your notes in oral reasons. Then hen number 2, she's bleached throughout. She had a 3x4 body capacity with a soft, pliable abdomen, no molt. She had bright eyes, large red comb, which means these things tell me she's a pretty good layer. This one was bleached well into the shanks with slight yellow over the tops of the toes. Well, I told you that's the last place it bleaches out. 2x4 body capacity, soft, pliable abdomen, no molt. Then hen 4 was through the shanks, a little bit of yellow on the toes. 3x4, fat, hard abdomen, no molt. I can tell you just without seeing these birds and looking at these, let me ask you, without seeing these chickens and just looking at these notes that somebody took on them, how would you place this? How would you rank or place, well, you can see at the bottom, this class of white leghorn hens? What's the order that you would put them in? And it's for you at the bottom of the slide. So who just wants to read the bottom of the slide?
Two, 4, 3, 1.
Yeah. All right. So here, this is very as simple as I know how to make it. Which one of these birds has laid the most eggs based on her bleaching?
The one on the left, number 1.
Number 1. That's right. That's correct. Can everybody see that bird 1 is more bleached out, has more pigment loss than bird number 2? Can everybody see that? Okay. And then oral reasons for one of your classes of birds. Remember, I said sometimes we do 2. You have to go. Sometimes Miss Prudence, I think, has done this. We get adults that know what they're doing to listen to about a 2-minute, no more than 2-minute explanation of why you place those birds this way. And here's a little example. Good afternoon. I placed this class of white leghorn. This is just a random class, not the same class we just did. I should have done the same class. I placed this class of white leghorn hens 4, 3, 1, 2. In the top pair, and in oral reasons, you have 2. So there's 4 chickens. So that means you have 3 pairs to talk about: your top pair, your middle pair, and your bottom pair. In the top pair, 4 places over 3 because she's more bleached. And if you want to talk about abdominal, you can talk about her abdominal capacity. She's got a more capacious abdomen. She's got less fat over her abdomen, a more soft, pliable abdomen. You need to know the terms to understand if you really want to get good at this. And you can talk about how she was no mold. I mean, I don't know that this bird, I didn't see these birds. So, but you can certainly add a lot there. And then in the middle pair, 3 places over 1 because she shows more bleaching. This is very, very simplified. And in the final pair, 1 places over 2 because she is more bleached hen. For these reasons, I placed this class of white leghorns 4, 3, 1, 2. So that's our Florida contest right there. Now at the national contest, they do a few other things. They do I already talked about the turkeys and the bigger chickens, the roasters. They also do breaded, boneless, processed poultry. In other words, chicken patties, like you would have a chicken sandwich. And then they do grading of parts, which I don't think we're going to do in our state contest. We might start doing some of this stuff. These are
Dr. Chris,
Yeah.
when is the state contest?
Okay.
Have they got a date for that?
Yes, the state contest is going to be February the 17th in Tampa at the Florida State Fair. And that will get you into if you sign up for poultry judging, which is going to open very soon in 4-H online before Thanksgiving, I'm hoping. So you can sign up for free in 4-H online as either an individual or a county team. And if you do that, you will be able to get into the Florida State Fair for free. You will. Now your parents probably will still have to pay, but your coach, and it might be maybe your parent or your club leader is the coach, your coach and the 4 team members can get in for free. So, and there's a junior, intermediate, and senior age group. So if you're between the ages of 8 through 10, you're a junior, 11 through 13, you're intermediate, and 14 and above are seniors. And then the senior team and the senior high individual qualify to go to the national contest in Louisville, Kentucky next November. So February 17th is a state contest. And if you think this is something you want to do, here is a link. This first link is the judging manual. And the second link is just information about the national contest and the other contests that are there. And I'm going to leave this up for a while, and I'm going to pause and ask for quick, because this is our last slide. We've been going for an hour and a half now almost. So who thinks, give me some feedback, like give me a thumbs up or raise your hand if you think you would like to do poultry judging at the State Fair in Tampa. I know you have to check with your parents, check with your club leaders or whatever, but if this is something you think you might want to do, give me a thumbs up or a hands up or whatever, or you can say me in chat if you want to.
Is there not a county level first that has to be submitted before going to state?
No, anybody can come to the state contest. Now, there are poultry shows at a lot of the county fairs, and some of the county fairs have a practice contest. Like, for instance, this past Saturday, I know Duval County Fair, the Greater Jacksonville Fair, had a poultry judging contest. It's kind of just for fun. And some county fairs have their own poultry judging contest, but at the state fair, it'll be our state contest. And any kid in Florida that's in 4-H between the ages of 8 and 18 can sign up. So if they want to do it, they don't have to go to a county contest. They can just sign up for ours. And if you want, more information, really everything's in this manual. But I can try to help you get some more study material too, if you think you might want to coach a team, or if you want to talk to your kids in your 4-H club. You got to have 4 kids to make up a team. Well, really you need 3, but it's better to have 4 because the lowest score is dropped. So if you have a team of 4, whoever has the lowest score, that isn't considered for your team's overall score. So we take the 3 highest out of 4. So you can either have a team of 3 or a team of 4. You need to sign up by about mid-January, which when we have it open in 4-H online, it'll have that date. But that'll give you at least 2 months to sign up.
Do the 4
Kaylin-
kids have to all be the same age?
They don't have to, they just have to be in the same age group. So
Okay.
4 juniors, 4 intermediates, or 4 seniors. Or 3. I mean, you can do 3, but it's like I say, it's better to have 4.
Okay.
If you have 3, you have 3. And I have seen a team of 3 beat several teams of 4. If you got 3. good
Kaylin
ones.
had a question as well.
Okay, what's your question, Kaylin?
So even if we enter in an animal, we can still vote. Like we can still judge other animals.
Yeah, if you enter, like Marissa has done this, and Marissa, don't you show poultry at the state fair? And then you also do the judging contest.
Yeah.
So you can show your birds at the state fair, which that deadline is probably coming up it's in January, I think, to enter your chickens in the fair.
You can judge and then like do the show your birds and then do the other part, the skillathon too.
That's a whole other contest, the skillathons. But you don't have to show your birds at the fair to do the judging contest. This contest I'm talking about, you can just come down for the day and do poultry judging. So you don't have to show your chickens at the state fair to compete in poultry judging.
Okay.
What other questions do you all have? Somebody asked about, I'm gonna email Miss Caskey is recording this. So when I get to, I'll tell you what, Miss Prudence, can you put the link to the website that has these recordings on there? So then you'll have everything. You can watch the whole thing again if you want to, and which will
Yes, sir.
include the slide. So look in the chat. She's going to put we've got a website. It's like a Google, I don't know what it's called, but some kind of website that, so the 4-H kids get to the state fair. Yeah, I don't know what the 11th might be. I don't know what the 11th is, but they certainly, if they're signed up for 4-H poultry judging, they can certainly get in on. Oh, I think you're talking about 4-H day. Yeah, we will make arrangements. You'll have to know what gate. I'll have to tell you whatever gate they tell me to tell you all to go to. But I'll send out, and whoever signs up for this, I'll send an informational email to go to gate XYZ and tell them whatever they tell me to tell you all to get you in. But yeah, you can get in again that day. And there's the site to the Google site. It's got all of our previous meetings recorded from this year and the last 2 or 3 from last year. And it will have this, what we're talking about right now. So you can go and click on this. And I will put this in chat so you can click on it now if you want to. Let's see. I'll copy it and put it in chat. So maybe it'll be easier for you just to copy and paste. Well, I think I just sent that to somebody. Let me put it for everybody. What other questions or comments? So some of you sound like you might be interested in doing this, which is good.
Do you know why they have to chop off, like on the roosters, do you know why they have to chop off their like red things on their chin or whatever?
Wattles?
Yeah.
They don't
I
do
can
that
answer that, Chris.
No, go ahead. Let's let Miss Prudence answer.
Okay, so I show Old English game bantams, and because they're game, it's breed standard to dub them is what it's called. And so they will remove the comb, the wattles, and the earlobes so that they have a nice smooth face. It's kind of like with Doberman, how you trim their ears and their tail. Right.
Yeah, my
breed
puppies
standard.
used to cut.
Yeah, like that. There you go. If he was a chicken, he'd be dubbed. So yeah, so that's why you'll see some that are dubbed.
Yeah, I went to this 4-hour thing where they were talking about chickens, and she said that they had to get their things cut off to be in the show.
Yeah, just particular breeds have to do that.
If you look at the American Poultry Association or the Bantam thing, it'll have different breed standards for whatever breed you're showing. But for our purposes, for this contest, it's just going to be white leghorn hens. And then for the carcasses, they're going to just be from the grocery store, which are going to be Cornish Rock crosses. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you, Miss Prudence, and Laura, thanks for being on with us from as your role as state officer. And I hope you tell the state officer team about the virtual poultry club. I want you to give us a good report, because we got some good kids in this club. I'm very proud of our kids. We've had kids in this club win showmanship at the Central Florida Fair and some of these other local fairs around the state in the last couple of years. So,
All right, well, y'all, I'm gonna stop the recording and post it to our site in the morning.
Not Dr. Chris.